Hi, my name is Kendall Newsom, and today I'll be talking about a well-known photographer, Dorothea Lange. She would really capture the struggles of people in America and their distress in just a single image. She also really tried to capture the people and the world for what it was, and I think she did that wonderfully. She has a few well-known pieces that I remember seeing when I was in high school, and this is actually one of the main things that made me choose her. I will talk about her history, analyze some of her pieces, and I'll also riff between her piece and mine. These are just some of the pictures of her, but Dorothea Nutzhorn, who later became Dorothea Lange, was born May 26, 1895 in Hoboken, New Jersey, and she sadly passed away from cancer October 11th, 1965 in San Francisco. She was best known for photographing the conditions of the people most affected by poverty and displacement at that time. During her childhood, she actually got polio, and this left her with a permanent limp in her right leg. She claimed that this actually shaped her worldview and inspired her to shoot what she shot. Something important about this time period was that this was all during the Great Depression, the Dust Bowl, and the stock market crash. And as we know, during this time, a lot of things were horrible economic and agriculture wise, and this helped Lang with her career as a documentary photographer. Often, documentary photographers capture raw moments of people's lives, and Lang did exactly that. Before her career took off, Lang actually studied at Columbia University, and after this, she photographed personalities of rich people in San Francisco. She also photographed migrant workers, and then in 1934, she had her first exhibition, and this helped her establish her reputation as a documentary photographer. The following year, her images had caught the attention of the public, which was a lot for her to take in at the time. This led to a commission from the Federal Resettlement Commission, which is now actually called Farm Security Administration. In 1939, she documented the mass evacuation of Japanese Americans to detention camps after the brutal attack on Pearl Harbor. In 2006, she went on to publish Impounded, Dorothea Lange, and the censored images of Japanese internment. And on the left there, bottom left, is the image of one of the pictures she took that went in that. She also went on to create photo essays after World War II. A few of them are called Mormon Villages and The Irish Countryman. She also collaborated with other photographers to create pieces like Exodus, a record of human erosion. And then there are a few more of her well-known pieces called Migrant Mother, White Angel Breadline, Ex-Slave with Long Memory, The Road West, and Pledge of Allegiance. Then in 1941, she received the Guggenheim Fellowship Award, and she was the first woman to actually ever be awarded this. As I mentioned earlier, some of her more famous pieces of artwork, I'm going to analyze my favorite two. The first one is called Migrant Mother, and the second one I will analyze is called Ex-Slave with Long Memory. For some context, in this photo, there was a woman named Florence who was at the time running, well, not really running, but had nowhere to really go from the situation she was in at the time, so she was just sitting in a little barn-like thing at the time. And she had 3 kids, as you can kind of see in the picture, 2 on her shoulders and 1 she's holding in her lap. But I like that Lang made the excuse me. I like that she made the main focus of the image the mother, and she clearly decided what should be in the frame and what shouldn't. I like that she didn't leave the boys, I assume they're all boys anyway, but she didn't leave the boys out completely of the picture, and I feel like that gives a lot more context to the image. Something else I'm going to talk about is the visual cues in this image. The vertical form of this image helps a lot with the framing. I just feel like it wouldn't have been nearly as powerful if she would have shot this horizontally. Another visual cue is color. Now, obviously, because of the time period, this black and white was the only viable option, but I feel like this also is something that makes the image all more powerful. I don't think it would have been nearly as meaningful if it was colorized. The last thing on this image I'll talk about is semiotic signs, and specifically indexical. You can assume by the look on her face and the clothes her and her boys are wearing and the state of them that they all seem to be in a pretty sticky situation or in distress. The way her boys are kind of clinging onto her shows that as well. And this makes me believe the purpose of this image was actually to get the viewer to feel empathy for them in their situation. The next photo, as I mentioned earlier, is called Ex-Slave with Long Memory. The visual cues in this one I'll discuss are more movement and depth. It is clear that she is speaking in the image and probably telling a story. She's also looking to the side, so I assume she was looking around as she was speaking, probably into the distance or staring at a house or something. As for depth, I like that it's clear that you can see you can see what you should be focusing on when you look at the image. She's in focus and the field behind her is not. As for image aesthetics, I'll be talking about the historical and personal aspects of this one. Almost all of Lange's work was done during the Great Depression, and this has a whole bunch to do with the historical aspect of the image. Excuse me. This, again, as I said, has a whole lot to do with the historical aspect, but it's pretty clear that during the name in the picture, the name of the picture and the time period, that this woman was at some point a slave. And as for a personal perspective, I see a hardworking woman. She looks like she was definitely someone that would have taken care of whoever needed help in their lives and approached her. She definitely seems like the type of woman that just has a whole bunch of stories to tell about her childhood and what it was like for her growing up. Of course, all of these are just assumptions based off the picture, but I like this picture a lot, and I feel like the image tells a story within itself. And that's one of the reasons I like it so much. I chose an image of Lange's that did not have a person as a subject, but instead of object. In her image, I like the leading lines that were created by the rows on the field, and I noticed that the lines kind of lead your eye to the house. So I tried to do something similar, composition-wise. My picture is a hall outside a building here on Texas Tech, and I tried creating leading lines with the bricks that would lead your eyes to the door at the end of the hall. This is also known as continuation. As for proximity, I made sure my door was far away from the camera, just how Lange's house is far away from the camera. And I also think both these images are horizontal and not vertical, and I think that makes the images a lot better as well. I feel like they wouldn't have been as good if they were vertical. I also feel like for more landscape or architectural images, I just feel like horizontal is better anyways, and you have more of a story to tell that way. Going back to composition for a bit though, the lighting is different, of course, considering the fact that her image doesn't have anything to cast shadows like mine does. And the trees were kind of, or where the sun was positioned, it made the trees cast a shadow onto the concrete. I also liked how Lange chose to capture more of the ground in her image, and I tried to do the same with mine. I don't know how well I succeeded, but I think that's a similarity between ours as well. And I also did a version in black and white so you can see some more of the similarities between the two images. Lange worked really hard and earned herself a pretty big name in history. She has taken so many memorable images that will continue to be shown in schools or documentaries for such a long time. She truly captured her subjects as they were, raw, and in that very moment. Lange shot the living and working conditions of the poor and working class, and this is called social realism, so that was her photography style. For Lange, this is truly an inspiration and an icon to others, and these are some of the images she took. These are my resources, and thank you so much for listening.